Hey guys, it's Goosebumps Completionist, and today I'm bringing you a book review from the 6 R.L. Stine novellas originally released in the year 2000. And the book in question is Zombie Town. Off the bat, I love the idea behind this book. It has those George Romero notes to it. And I really think Stine sat down when he wrote this and took inspiration from how George Romero lays out a zombie story. Really dug it, I have to say. Based on the structure of this book, I don't think this by any means was supposed to be a full-length book. I actually think it has a short story feel to it, based on its clear and concise ending, structure, and short story format. So I think this most likely has plausible roots to the Lost Triple Header book. Triple Header Book 3, if I had to guess. But nonetheless, it doesn't take anything away from the story. But I want you guys to know, when I get to reviewing it and rating the book, I will be rating it like a short story, because I feel that it is a legitimate short story. So keep that in mind. And also, this is one of my all-time favorite Tim Chagobas covers. Definitely in my top 5. Love this cover. It's beautiful. Alright, so let's get into the plot overview without giving too much away. So this kid named Mike, it jumps into the story where there's a new movie that came out, and it's called Zombie Town. And Mike's best friend Karen really wants Mike to see this movie with her because she's a horror fanatic. And Mike is just one of those wimpy type of kids. He doesn't really like scary stuff. He'd rather be at home playing video games. Which, off the bat, in the first part of this book, and I have the Amazon edition here, they reference Diablo 3, which, for those of you that don't know, that game was released in 2012. And the original version of this book from 2000, I highly doubt had Diablo 3 in the book. So if somebody has the original version of this, please let me know. I just think that there's possibly some story altering going on in these Amazon editions. But anyway, let's get back to Mike and Karen's relationship. So Karen wants Mike to go see this movie, and she basically talks him into going. And they go to the movie theater, and they get their tickets from the ticket booth, and they get inside, and the theater seems kind of vacant. They don't really think anything of it. They go to the popcorn stand, they get a big bucket of popcorn, they get some sodas, and then they make their way to the theater where the movie is. And they get their seat, and nobody's in the theater with them. They're basically by themselves. Now, one of the nonsensical things going on in this story is dealing with the movie itself, Zombie Town, which bears the same name as the book's title. The way the story starts and comes off, this movie definitely would be rated R. At least in my thought process. So the fact that these two 11 or 12-year-old kids got to go into this R-rated movie without any parents is the nonsensical part. But I'm going to try to overlook that because I don't really think it takes away from the story, but it does add that nonsensical element to it. But the movie's about to start, and the door closes. They can hear it from all the way from where they're sitting in their seats, and that kind of spooks Mike a little bit, but they don't really think anything of it. And basically, the movie starts with no previews or anything. It just goes right into the movie, which is kind of abnormal. And it starts off in the movie where these kids are riding their bikes in this park. They're all playing, and then they stop by these bushes, and these zombies come out of these bushes. And the way they describe these zombies are absolutely revolting and disgusting. Very scary to even imagine what this would look like in real life. Very graphic. And basically, it implies that these kids were eaten alive before the movie cut to black. So what happened was, the scene happened and then the screen went black. And the whole theater went quiet. And Karen and Mike are kind of spooked by this. They wonder, was there a technical difficulty? Maybe there's going to be a worker going to come in and check the screen or get something working. But nobody came to help. So when they think about going to get help, they start hearing these groaning noises coming from the theater, these abnormal groaning noises. And it starts to spook them pretty badly. It would me too. Trust me. But they go to the door that they heard shut, and it's locked. They're locked in this theater. And this starts to panic the two. Karen at first was having a fun time. They thought that maybe this was an interactive experience that the theater workers were doing, but it doesn't seem that way. Maybe they were accidentally locked in there. Then they go try to escape the nearest escape door. That door is also locked. They can't get the thing open. And when they go to regroup near the front of the theater, which, mind you, this theater is set up like an old-fashioned theater. If you've ever been to one, you know what I'm talking about. It's like one Cineplex. You walk in these ornate doors and you go inside, and there's this grand stage with a theater screen, and there's these beautiful balconies with decorations all around it. That's basically the type of theater they're in. And when they go near the stage area, that's when they encounter these zombies. And they seem to have come from the movie, because they look exactly like the zombies they saw in the film. So this freaks them out. They try to escape. They're basically cornered. They get themselves out of the cornering, and they have to climb this scaffolding, curtain-esque thing to get up to the balcony, because they notice an escape door from where they were standing, and they said, we got to get up there. And the zombies follow them, and they have a couple close calls, but they manage to get into the lobby of the theater and eventually out of the theater. And Karen starts laughing. She goes, this has to be a prank. These theater workers are giving the experience of a lifetime with this show. Maybe that's why they were the only people in the theater. Maybe they were chosen or something to have a special showing. But Mike is not believing it. He's not the horror fan. He just wants to go home and get out of there. But they have to call their parents to come pick them up. So they go to this nearby gas station, and while they're walking and heading to the gas station, they notice that the town is basically quiet and deserted, like nobody's around. Then they see this car pulling off with all of their family belongings and just dipsetting out of the town. And this starts to really worry Mike and Karen. And when they get into the gas station, they have to find a phone to call for help. Because obviously, when they edited the story to add Diablo 3, they couldn't add the idea of having a cell phone. But let's just dive into the plot convenience a little bit more. So they're in the gas station. The whole place is deserted. They think something is very wrong. So they devise a plan to go back to their own houses and check on their families just to see if this is a prank or maybe this is real. So Karen goes to her house and Mike goes to his house. Then Mike learns a very dark thing about his family. Basically, his family's dead, including his dog. And it's some pretty graphic stuff dealing with the dog and the family. Like dealing with fresh human limbs. Some dark humor in this book. But anyway, so Mike is absolutely petrified. He tries to escape his house, and there's some pretty scary ordeals from him trying to get out of his house. When he does finally get out, he learns his neighbors are also zombies. And then Karen's families are also zombies, and now Karen has been turned into a zombie. And just when you think Mike's about to be a goner, a total 360 happens in the last chapter, and there's a big revelation that makes it so the whole thing that happened in the story basically never really happened, and then that's all I'm going to leave it, because I don't want to spoil the ending. But yeah, that's basically in a nutshell Zombie Town. So let's get into the strengths of this story. I dug the closed premise to the story. It had just a simple idea behind it. It went straight to the point. It had some originality to it. It paid respect to, prolific zombie horror writers like George Romero. Some cool body horror stuff in this. Very graphic. some dark humor elements in there. The protagonists, Mike and Karen, pretty entertaining, very relatable. But the negative I have with this is the ending. The ending just adds a whole meta aspect to the story, which I definitely see goosebumps within that ending. And some people really like the meta stuff. Some people really don't. I like meta when it works. In this story, I do think it fits because it adds a darker element, especially in like the last sentence of the story, which was very entertaining. So constructively, for this short story, how I rate short stories are different than like regular books. I would say about half of these I'm going to rate like short stories, and about half of them I'm going to rate like normal books, because about half of them I think were supposed to be normal books, about half of them I think are supposed to be short stories. This is one of the short stories. I'm looking for originality, deliverance on the page constraints. Was it scary? Original? I think it checks a lot of those boxes. Pretty much all of them. So constructively, for a short story, if I had to rate it from a 0 to 5 stars, I think I'm going to give this a 5 out of 5. This is one of my favorite reads so far. When I do a ranking video, this probably will be high on the list, if not number 1. So yeah, that's my thoughts and views on Zombie Town. If you guys have read this story, what did you guys think about it? Let me know in the comment section. Did you love it or did you hate it? Dying to know, and I'll see you next time.